Good morning, students. In the previous lecture of the hydrocarbons, we derived the formula for the enthalpy, right? So let's write all the formulas that are useful. Okay, among them, the first formula will be the first law of the thermodynamics. Delta U is equal to Q plus W, right? After that, we derived formula delta U is equal to Q minus P delta V. Okay. After that, in the next lecture, we derived the formula that was delta H is equal to delta U plus P delta V. In the last lecture, we derived this formula, okay, where we proved that delta H is equal to QP. That means exchange of heat at a constant pressure. And we, in the first or the second lecture, we derived that delta U is equal to work adiabatic, right? As well as we derived that delta U is equal to Q when work was 0, in the sense at a constant volume. Okay. Now, in this lecture, we are going to derive one more formula for the enthalpy change. Okay. In the last lecture, I told you that if exothermic reaction is there, delta H will be negative, and if endothermic reaction is there, delta H will be positive. Okay. Now, in this lecture, we are going to talk about solid compound and liquid compounds. So, in the solid and liquid compounds, we know that volume are constant. Volume is mostly constant, right? That's why delta V will be equal to 0, and if delta V is 0, then from that we know that W will be also 0, and if W is 0, then delta U will be equal to QV. That means volume is constant, and which will be equal to delta H for the solid and liquids. Why? Because they do not expand with heat. Yes, they expand, but the difference will be negligible. Okay, look at this. The difference between delta H and delta U is not usually significant for system consisting of only solid and or liquids. Why? Because solid and liquids do not suffer any significant volume change upon heating. Do not suffer any significant volume change. That means, look at this. In this formula, if delta V is negligible, then we can guess that delta V is 0. So, P delta V will be 0. So, delta H will be equal to delta U, and both will be equal to QV. Okay. The difference, however, becomes significant when gas are involved. Okay. In a gaseous situation or in the gaseous state, we know that if there is a more change of volume, then it will be clearly significant, and we can see it through our naked eyes. So, for the gaseous compounds, so gases, we have ideal gas equation PV. Right now we have delta V, but we will go with the PV is equal to nRT, right? Now we are going to take two different possibilities for the reagents. We will take A. So pressure will be of all the reagent will be P, it is constant, whereas volume of all the reagents are Va and mole of the reagents are Na. Okay, R is the constant and temperature of the reagent will be same. Now let's talk about the products. So volume of the product, total volume will be Vb, whereas number of gaseous mole of the product will be Nb, and R will be constant as well as T will be the constant over here. Now if we take or subtract reagent from product, we will get something like this: P in the bracket Vb minus Va, and over here Nb minus Na, the gaseous mole only, not a solid, not a liquid, and RT. That means we got P delta V is equal to delta N of the gaseous compounds RT. So P delta V is equal to delta Ng RT. So we are going to put down this particular equation into our delta H equation here. So we will get a new formula. Delta H will be equal to delta U plus delta N of the gaseous compounds RT. Okay, so this will be the new formula derived from ideal gas. Look at this. Let us consider a reaction involving gases. If Va is the total volume of the gaseous reagent and Vb is the total volume of the gaseous products, Na is the number of moles of the gaseous reagent and Nb is the number of moles of a gaseous products, all at constant pressure and constant temperature. That's why P will be the same and T will be the same in both the conditions, right? Now if we take a difference between product and reagent, we will got a equation something like this: P delta V is equal to delta Ng RT, and if we put down this particular formula into our enthalpy formula, we will get a new formula of the enthalpy. Okay, we can use this formula for the calculation of delta H as well as delta U. So for that they have given us one question, problem 6.5. So let's solve problem 6.5. Okay, over here problem 6.5. If water vapor is assumed to be perfect gas, in the sense water vapor is ideal gas, molar enthalpy change for vaporization of 1 mole of water at 1 bar and 100 degrees Celsius is 41 kilojoule per mole. So first they have given us enthalpy change. So delta H has been given. It is equal to 41 kilojoule mole inverse. It is molar quantity. Okay. After that they have given us the number of moles. 1 mole is there. Temperature has been given. It is 100 degrees Celsius. So it will be 373 Kelvin. Okay. Pressure is 1 bar pressure. You can see that they have given us 1 bar pressure. 1 bar pressure. Okay, now let's talk about the reaction. Reaction is the vaporization reaction. That's why H2O liquid will be vaporized and it will give us H2O gas. So now let's calculate delta Ng. So delta Ng, that means difference of gaseous moles. You can see that only a product is in a gaseous state, whereas reagent are in a liquid state. So 1 minus 0, delta Ng will be 1. Remember that liquid moles and solid moles will be ignored. Only gaseous moles will be considered. So product minus reagent. Product has a 1 mole of a gaseous compound, whereas reagent have 0 mole of gaseous compound. That's why delta Ng will be 1 minus 0. So delta Ng will be 1. Now look at the question. Calculate internal energy change. So we want delta U. We want delta U. Okay, we have the formula. So let's put down the formula. What is the formula? Formula is delta H will be equal to delta U plus delta Ng RT was the formula. Okay, now put down the values. So we want to find out delta U, right? So delta U will be equal to delta H minus delta Ng RT. Okay, so delta H is equal to 41 kilojoule, right? Delta H is equal to 41 kilojoule per mole, but we want joule, not kilojoule. That's why delta H will be converted into joule from kilojoule. So multiplied by 1000. So our answer will be 41,000. Okay, minus delta N. Delta N is equal to 1 into R. R is 8.314 joule Kelvin inverse mole inverse. Okay, and temperature is 373. Okay, therefore delta U will be equal to 41,000 minus multiplication of this. Let's do the multiplication. Simply 8.314 into 373. It will be equal to 3101.122. If we subtract this from 41,000, we will get our answer, and that will be equal to delta U is equal to 37,898.878. Unit will be joule into mole inverse. Okay, if we convert this into kilojoule, we will be dividing it by 1000. So we will get our answer 37.898 kilojoule mole inverse. Okay, now remember that this answer will differ from the textbook, because in the textbook they have given only 8.3 as a value of R, but we have taken a proper precise value of R. Okay, look at this. 1 mole of water is vaporized, that's why change will be H2O liquid converted to H2O gas. Okay, our formula is delta H is equal to delta U plus delta NgRT. Put down the values. So remember that kilojoule must be converted into joule. Kilojoule must be converted into joule, otherwise the remaining value will be converted into kilojoule. Either way you can do the calculation, but I prefer kilojoule converted into joule and you will get your answer. Okay. After that, extensive and intensive properties. It is a easy topic. In the thermodynamics, a distinction is made between the extensive property and intensive property. Okay, the first definition is of extensive properties. That means extensive property depends on quantity or a size. Okay. So an extensive property is a property whose value depends on the quantity or the size of the matter present in the system. For example, mass, volume, internal energy, enthalpy, heat capacity, these all are simply extensive property. That means they depend on the amount, quantity or the size of the matter. Okay, totally opposite of that, intensive properties. Those property which do not depend on the quantity, size or of the matter present is known as the intensive properties. Temperature, density, pressure do not depend on the matter or size or the quantity. Look at this. They have given us one experiment for that. It is quite simple. We have one container with a V volume and T temperature. Okay, if we divide this particular box, you will get that volume will be halved because we divide it, so volume will be divided by 2, but the temperature will not be divided by 2 because temperature remains same in the both the boxes, because temperature is extensive property whereas volume is temperature is intensive property whereas volume is extensive property. Okay, a most important thing, if we convert any extensive property into the molar value, then molar value will be intensive property. Suppose molar volume, molar heat capacity, molar weight or molar mass, molar volume, every single thing will be intensive property. If we divide extensive property by mole, if extensive property is divided by mole, it will converted into intensive property. Look at this. A molar property is a value of extensive property of a system for 1 mole substance. That means if n number of mole is there, then independent amount of matter. So molar property will be intensive property. For example, heat capacity, molar heat capacity will be intensive property whereas heat capacity is extensive property. Likewise, volume is extensive property, but molar volume is intensive property. Let us understand the distinction between extensive and intensive property by considering a gas closed container of volume V and temperature T. Let us make a partition such that volume is halved but temperature remains same. It is clear that volume is an extensive property and temperature is an intensive property. Okay. After that, a most important thing, they have subtracted heat capacity from your syllabus. So heat capacity is not included in your syllabus, but we will use the formula. So what is the formula for heat capacity? It is quite simple. Q is directly proportional to the temperature change. If you increase the temperature, Q will increase of the system. If you decrease the temperature, Q will decrease of the system. That's why if we remove this sign with the equal, we will get one constant, and that constant is known as a heat capacity C. Okay. Now there are total 3 type of heat capacities. One is the normal heat capacity. I am going to write the unit. Normal heat capacity unit is joule Kelvin inverse. Okay, then molar heat capacity divided by moles. So joule Kelvin inverse mole inverse. Okay, and after that our last heat capacity will be specific heat capacity will be capital C. It will be joule gram inverse Kelvin inverse. Remember that you can identify the heat capacity by the units. If unit is joule Kelvin inverse, it is only heat capacity. If unit is joule Kelvin inverse mole inverse, it is molar heat capacity. And if unit is joule gram inverse Kelvin inverse, it is specific heat capacity or the special heat capacity. Okay, look at this. They have given over here. So it is excluded from your syllabus, so we are not going to study it. After that, they have also deducted relation between Cp and Cv. There is also a formula for that. Cp minus Cv will be equal to gaseous constant R. They have derived this formula, but we are just going to remember the formula. Okay. After that, measurement of the U and H, it is also deducted from the syllabus. So we are directly going to solve problem number 6.6 using the formulas we have just learned. Okay. So problem number 6.6. Okay. Problem 6.6. Now look at the values they have given. 1 gram of the graphite. So weight is equal to 1 gram of the graphite, means carbon. After that, is burned in a bomb calorimeter in the excess of oxygen at 298 Kelvin temperature. So our T1 is equal to 298 Kelvin. Okay. 1 atmospheric pressure is there. That's why pressure will be equal to 1 atm. After that, they have given us the reaction. We will write it down. Temperature rises to 299 Kelvin. So T2 is equal to 299 Kelvin. So difference will be T2 minus T1. So delta T. We do not need T1 or T1, we need only delta T. It is equal to 1 Kelvin, T2 minus T1. Okay. After that, if heat capacity, look at the unit, kilojoule per Kelvin, that means it is a simple value. It is 20.7. So simple C is equal to 20.7 kilojoule Kelvin inverse. Okay, it is in a kilojoule value. What is the enthalpy change for the above reaction at 298 Kelvin and 1 atmospheric pressure? Suppose Q is the quantity of heat from the reaction mixture and Cv is the heat capacity of the calorimeter, then the quantity absorbed by the formula we have just discovered. What was the formula? Look at this. What was the formula? Q is equal to C delta T. So we are going to use that formula. Okay. Simply Q is equal to C into delta T. Now, most important thing, what was the reaction? C was solid, carbon, graphite is solid. When reacting with excess amount of dioxygen, which is gas, we will get CO2, carbon dioxide, right, in a gaseous form. So delta Ng, number of change in the mole. Okay. In the product, carbon dioxide is only 1 and in the reagent, oxygen is 1. Now, carbon is solid, so it will be ignored. So delta Ng will be equal to 0. okay, plus this is exothermic reaction, and in the exothermic reaction heat is released. That's why Q will be minus. That's why Q is equal to minus C into delta T. Why? Because reaction is exothermic reaction. Okay. Now let's find out the values. Q is equal to minus value of C 20.7 and delta T is equal to 1. So what will be the answer? Q will be equal to minus 20.7 kilojoule. Okay. Now remember that whenever you are calculating enthalpy or the internal energy, it will be molar value. Okay, and this value is a simple value, it is not a molar value. So we will need molar heat. Okay, and for that we are going to use cross multiplication. Right now we have 1 gram of graphite. So 1 gram of graphite releases minus 20.7 kilojoule value. So if we have 1 mole of carbon, 1 mole of carbon means 12 gram of carbon. So 12 gram of carbon graphite will require how much amount of heat? It will be quite simple and easy. We know that we have to multiply it in a cross. So 12 into minus 20.7 divided by 1. So our answer will be equal to the multiplication of 12 into 20.7. It is equal to minus 248.4, and value will be now per mole. So kilojoule mole inverse, it is equal to Q. Okay, and QV is equal to delta H. That's why delta H is equal to minus 248.4 kilojoule mole inverse. Okay, now change in the internal energy. We have the formula delta H is equal to delta U plus delta N of the gaseous compounds Rg, right? Now delta N is equal to 0. That's why delta H equal to delta U plus 0 into RT, and that will be 0. 0 multiplied by with RT will be 0. That's why delta H is equal to delta U will be equal to minus 248.4 kilojoule per mole. So that will be our answer. Look at this. See, they have find out the value in the power. Simply if you multiply it by 100, you will get 248.4. Okay, so that was all for today's lecture. In the next lecture we are going to discuss about some of the different forms of the enthalpy and how can we calculate the enthalpy for the reaction. Okay, thank you so much.